Nikisha. I want to thank our presenters, Nikisha Anderson and Jonathan Archie. Thank you all so much for presenting tonight. I will now invite my husband, who will start us off in prayer and then devotion, and then we'll move into the presentation. Again, thanks everyone for attending.
Good evening, everyone. And again, let me express my sincere thanks on behalf of Marriage Ministry and Stewardship Ministry, and also our AY Ministry for hosting this program, which we think is very much needed in our religious circle. Let us just start with a word of prayer. Kind and loving Father in heaven, we want to give you the honor and the glory for allowing us to put this program together. We want to thank you for our hosts who have made themselves available, that your people can not just be spiritually savvy, but also financially savvy and also financially well off. We pray that you'll continue to help us to be good stewards of the things that you have given to us. And now we invite your presence in our midst, Father, that everything we do and say will meet your approval. We ask that you'll continue to help us to be civil and to be Christian like in our department and in the way that we carry out this program, that your spirit will just fall upon us, Father. We pray for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, that everything that we have learned this evening, that we will be able to take it and use it in our lives, Father, to better our financial standing. We pray in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
So our devotional topic is taken from Deuteronomy 8 and verse 18. And it reads, "But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he swore unto thy fathers, as it is this day." So again, I say good evening to all. Our devotional thought text reminds us that we all have the ability to achieve wealth status, that none of us need to or should live in a state of lack. Sometimes we ask God for things and we want to tell him how we want it and when we want it, not taking into consideration whether or not it will have a negative impact on our spiritual lives. What I have learned from my experience from asking God for things is that I have to prepare for the things that I would like to receive when I ask God for it. Now, it's not that God is not going to hear and answer all of our prayers, because sometimes we think that God works on the same level as a genie. He will, if we prepare ourselves to receive the things that we ask of God. The Bible says he is faithful to answer our prayers, right? And all we have to do is believe. So, what I have learned is that he will give us the skills, the abilities, and the blessings to achieve the goals that we would like to see. Because one of the things I admire about the way God works is the symbiotic relationship, in that he doesn't just give us things. The same way when it comes to ministry, it's a symbiotic relationship in that we work hand in hand with God in order to achieve the common goal. So he will give us the skills, he will give us the abilities, and he will give us the blessings to achieve our goals. How we use it upon receipt also has an effect upon the end results. We have to use our acquired wealth wisely, responsibly, and also generously to assist when the need arises. We cannot forget also we cannot forget from cannot forget the source from which our wealth came. We cannot allow ourselves to get swept away by the newly acquired ability to afford anything we fancy. That may end up creating a separation between us and our God. So, if that is going to be the case, do you honestly think that God is going to give us something that is going to separate us from Him? We have to continue recognizing God as our ultimate source, as the ultimate source of our sustenance, that we should not try to keep the credit and lay claim to personal effort. In closing, we must remember the Bible never says God will make us wealthy. He doesn't operate as a genie, as I mentioned earlier, but rather, He gives us the ability, He also gives us the power that we may acquire wealth. So, as we go through this program this evening, I pray that first of all, we will call upon the Lord in our own personal space, that we will be able to speak to Him, that He will give us everything that is necessary. But the key to it is preparing ourselves, not just mentally, not physically, but also spiritually. And as we continue, may the Lord continue to bless each and every person that is on this webinar this evening. We pray that the Lord will bless each one of you abundantly. Amen.
Okay, thank you so much, Shane. We will now segue into our presentation. We'll start off with Nikisha Anderson. She's going to present to us as much information, great information on budgeting, on wills and trusts, on debt. Thank you so much, Nikki. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Hi, family. I miss you guys.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Nikki. Miss you too.
Yes,
Love
you
the hair.
do.
Love the
And
hair.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
and the family, we miss you all also.
Same here, same here. So I just want to thank you guys for the invitation, for inviting Jonathan and myself to present this financial webinar to you guys, this seminar this evening. And my hope and our prayer is that you will learn something from the presentation and not just learn and hear it, but actually implement it into your day to day and, share the information with your family and friends so we can be more aware of our finances and be more better management, I should say, of our finances. So this evening, the presentation will the presentation will be done in basically 2 to 3 sections. It will be 3 sections. To start the presentation, the first section will be money management. And under money management, I will cover budgeting, debt management, and also credit score, understanding how credit work in your day-to-day life. Then the second segment will be on real estate, everything real estate. So, and then the third section will be estate planning, but mostly on wills and trusts. Now you can write your questions after each segment. There will be a question and answer session. So you can ask your questions, you can write them down, you can put them in the chat, and then we'll be able to address them as we continue on. So before I continue, I am going to give you a little trivia to see what do you really know about money management. So in the chat, Jonathan will be placing the question in the chat, and I will read the question out loud, and then you can just give your answers in the chat. So the first question is, What percentage of US families have less than $1,000 in savings? What percentage of US families have less than $1,000 in savings? Is it A, 15%? Is it B, 28%? Is it C, 39%? And is it D, 63%? A, 15%, B, 28, C, 39, D, 63. Da, 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 da. And the answers are coming in, and the answer is C, 39%. And that is taken from CNBC report on Americans' savings habits. So if you answered 39%, you're on track.
Hmm.
Let's go to question number 2. What is the biggest financial mistake families make? What is the biggest financial mistake families make? Option A, overspending on entertainment. B, not having an emergency fund. C, not paying off credit card debts. And D, forgetting to invest in retirement. So what is the major problem within families? Overspending on entertainment. B, not having an emergency fund. C, not paying off your credit card. Or D, forgetting to invest in retirement. Okay, I'm seeing the answers. I'm seeing all the answers. And the answer is B, correct. Not having an emergency fund. Yes, all of the above, but the most one is, the one that is on top is not having an emergency fund. Question number 3. What is the highest possible FICO score, credit score? The highest possible FICO credit score. Is it A, 750? Is it B, 800? Is it C, 850? Or is it D, 900? 750, B, 800, C, 850, D, 900. I'm seeing different answers coming in. And the answer for that is C, 850. So I'm seeing that we are learning things as we start this presentation. Let's go to question number 4. What debt repayment strategy focuses on paying off the smallest balances first to build momentum? So you pay off the smallest balance first. Is it the avalanche method? Is it consolidation for B? Is it C, snowball, or it is D, roll over? Avalanche is A, B is consolidation, C is snowball, and D, roll over. The answers are coming in, they're coming in. And the answer is C, snowball method. And don't worry, I will be going into details in regards to all of these questions. It will be covered within the presentation. And one final question. What is the leading cause of financial stress for families in the US? What is the leading cause of financial stress for families in the US? Is it A, lack of budget, B, credit card debt, C, housing costs, or D, unexpected medical bills? Is it lack of budget, B, credit card debt, C, housing costs, or D, unexpected medical bills? And the answer is unexpected medical bills. You know, when it comes on to going to the hospital or anything like that, that is crazy. And you can have a lot, and one sickness wipes it out. So I want to thank you guys for your participation within just this trivia. And the aim of this is not just to see how much you know, but for you to think about it. You understand? And you will see, okay, did I know this or did I not know this? What can I do to implement it? So I am going to go into the presentation. So we're starting out with money management. What is money management? Money management is the process of tracking and planning how you use your money. The goal of money management is to grow your money and achieve your financial goals. So basically, when I say money management, there are different aspects of it, and it can be a wide range. But some of the things that we'll be focusing on today is, one, do you have a budget? Two, are you looking at your needs? Are you prioritizing the needs over the wants? Do you have an emergency fund? Are you paying your bills on time? And are you saving? Money management is a crucial part of life, and it is an important skill that should be taught early. And within our Black communities, most money management is not a topic that we discuss within the family. We do not really talk about it at the dinner table or at the end of the week, within the family. So it is something that we need to implement within our families. And the earlier we start, the better it is, but it's never too late to start. So if you have not started it, you can go ahead for 2025. We are setting resolutions. This should be a part of it. An effective money management plan helps you to set the right goals. And it provides you with the roadmap you need to reach critical financial milestones in life. But in order for you to have money management in place, you have to have the right attitude. Having the right attitude will help you to be successful. If you are someone with a positive attitude towards finances, it will help you to set realistic goals. It helps you to focus on opportunities for growth. You're able to calculate risk, and you're able to create budget and stick to it. Now, if you have a negative attitude towards money management, it will give you a lack of confidence knowing that you can do it. You will have missed opportunities for investment or for career development. And also, it makes it more difficult for you to meet your goals and your financial commitments. Now, in terms of budgeting is a process of creating a plan to spend your money. That's it. That plan is called a budget. So all you have to know is that it is a plan on how to spend your money. And I want to let you know that when you have a budget, it is not to hinder you from not enjoying life or for not spending. It's just a guide on how you can spend it. Creating a budget, it allows you to determine in advance whether you have enough money to do the things that you want to do or the things that you like to do. It is an important pillar of your overall success and security. And basically, budgeting, in a nutshell, is balancing your expenses with your income. So if you're going on a vacation, your vacation should be a part of your budget. I'm not going to tell you you should not go on vacation. You should not do the finer things in life. No, the budget is just a plan that you put down to know how much you have to spend or how you can spend. Now, if you in terms of the making your budget, a lot of people tend to shy away from it and look at it in a negative light. And if I'm supposed to ask a question, how many people have a budget? I know I'd have a lot of hands going up, but by the time I'm finished with talking about the different components of a budget, I know hands will be going down. So the first thing, you have 5 areas that your budget needs to cover. And the first one, it needs to be written down. It can be on a paper, in a book, or it can be on your computer, in your phone. It needs to be written, something that you can actually sit down and look at. When you have it written down, that is when you're able to see everything in black and white. You're able to see, okay, wow, this is the amount of money I actually spend on food versus eating out versus cooking at home. If the numbers are in your head, most times when I ask my clients, my friends, if they have the budget written down for me to see it, they say no.
Give us a minute, please.
Hello, I'm back. I'm so sorry about that, guys.
Oh, sorry, Jonathan.
Jonathan, can you share for me, please? I'm not sure what happened on my side.
Okay, no problem.
How far did you guys hear? Where did you guys stop hearing me?
So the credit part where there was parts of the credit that we're not familiar with, like, sorry, setting up budgets and parts of a budget that we may not be familiar with.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so much. So with Jonathan's sharing, I'll be able to see you
Oh,
guys in the background.
sure.
Okay. So let's just recap. So basically a budget is a process of creating a plan to spend your money, right? Um, Creating a budget, it helps you to determine in advance whether you have enough money to do the things that you like to do and the things that you need to do. It is a pillar for, it's an important pillar of your overall success and security. It is simply balancing your expenses with your income. So basically, when you look at a budget, I don't want you to think about it as being something that will basically cut off your fun time or time to go out and enjoy life. No, that is not what a budget is. A budget is a guide, something that will help you in your day-to-day life. Next slide. So when you have a budget, it needs to have these 5 components. So it must be written, which means if you have the numbers in your head, that is not a budget. It needs to be written down on paper, or you can put it on an Excel sheet, or in your phone. You have a lot of apps that are available now, but it has to be written down. You need to be able to sit down and look at it. It needs to be well planned. So no, you're not going to be able to just sit down in one sitting and complete your budget. You might have to go back to it 2 or 3 times just to ensure that you have all the different components, all the different elements, everything included in the budget. The next thing is that it needs to be realistic. So you're not going to put it to say, okay, I will never buy any more dessert, no more dessert for the rest of my life. And then I will save $10 every week. No. Make it realistic. Make it something that you can live with for the rest of your life. Don't let it be something that you change overnight, but let it be a part of your change overall. So it won't be burdensome when you're actually following that budget that you put together. The next one is that it needs to be flexible. So the budget that you will have in December, it will be a different budget you will need for, say, for instance, a January or a February. In December, people tend to buy gifts, have more parties, go out a little bit more just to enjoy and all of that. Even a month, if you say, for instance, your anniversary is in the month of August, you normally celebrate, go out on a vacation. The budget for August will be different from a budget when you're not taking any vacation or you're not buying any gifts. And the final thing, it needs to be clearly communicated to your family, with your family. So your spouse, both of you need to sit down and put it together, right? And in terms of your children, depending on their age, you need to start talking to them about finances. Don't wait until they're in college or when they're in your senior year at high school, you're expecting them to learn all of this information. You can start as young as age 5. You can tell them how to use money. You can teach them how to use money. When they go to the store, give them money to spend so they understand. And from doing that, it will be a part of their day-to-day, and eventually, overall, they will be better at it. Next slide. So what makes up a budget? Basically, it's 2 segments: your income and then your expenses. The income at the top, and the income will include your salary, whatever amount that you're getting each week, each month, each bi-weekly, each semi-monthly. You're gonna put it, if you do it on a monthly basis. So if you get paid twice, you times the amount that you get every 2 weeks by 2. If you get paid every week, you times it by 4. And if you get one payment once a month, it's just one figure. And the second section is basically your expenses. You're going to list everything that you spend your money on, right? And then at the end, you put your income at the top, you minus your expenses, and whatever is left, sometimes it can be 0. It will be fine if it's 0. And it will be fine if you have, say, for instance, $100 left. Why do I say that? As long as your expenses is not higher than your income, you're good. So if your income is $900 and your expenses after you put everything in there is $900 and you have zero, you're pretty good. But if your income is 900 and you have 1,000 for your expenses, that means you're in the red of $100. So a balancing budget is fine, but not when it is negative. Next slide. So when you put your budget together, there are times where you ask yourself, okay, how do I increase my income? How do I decrease my expenses? So the first thing is increasing your income. You can do that by getting more income. How do I get more income? You can find a second job. If you have a business, you can use the profits. You can get income by getting real estate, and Jonathan will go into that. If you're getting royalties, if you're getting capital gain, say for instance you sold an asset or and you made a profit off it, and also from your investments, your dividends and your interest. Those are areas that you can increase the income. So if your budget is showing a red in terms of it's in the negative at the end, you need to increase your income. Now, how do I decrease my expenses? You need to switch to store brands. That will help you to save, because most times the bigger brands are more expensive than the store-bought brand. When you're shopping, shop with a list, right? Plan meals instead of going out each day and just buying lunch. If you're supposed to calculate how much money you spend on lunch each day versus taking the paper bag lunch, as what you will say, you will see how much money you can save. Shop to save. So when you go to the store, don't just pick up items and come out the store because you don't like shopping. Look and see what is on sale, what the deal is. Work it out so you can get the best deal possible. Plan and save for large expenses. So if you know that you need to go on vacation, that's a large expense most of the time. Start planning for it. Start saving for it. And negotiate every bill. Which means you need to be looking at your bills when they come in each month. Don't just, not because it's on auto pay, you're just gonna just ignore the bill. I have a friend who said that they don't really look at their statements. No, you need to look at your statements, because if errors are there, you can be paying extra that you don't need to be paying. Right? So when you're putting your budget together, remember that every month is different, which means you have to go into that budget every month. Take your time, put 10, 15, 20 minutes away each month and review what happened for the last month, and then see where you need to make the change for the upcoming month. The second one is always understate your income and overstate your expenses. So if you work overtime and you will get, say for instance, $500 in overtime, but then on a good busy season, you're getting 800 in overtime. Do not use the 800. It's better to understate it and use the 500. Or if you're not getting the bonus or the overtime each week or each month, don't use the overtime income at all. In terms of your expenses, if you're paying $167 for something, don't call it 160. Call it 167 or 170. And at the end of the day, you'll have the extra that you need. Use your net income, which is your take-home pay, because that is what you actually have to spend. So after the taxes and insurance and retirement have been taken out, use the amount that you take home, right? And then you start with the most important category. So you need to start with your housing. As you can see, there's a picture on the screen, your rent, electric, water, all of that, everything that has to do with your housing. Then you can go into transportation, and then you can go into miscellaneous. Now, as you can see, there's a savings category on your budget. So it needs to be included in the expense section, and you need to include your tithing and your savings. So if you are saving, say, $200 each month, $100 each month, and you're sending it over to whichever account, you should include it in the miscellaneous section of your budget. Your tithes should also be included in your expenses, right? Always have a miscellaneous line on your budget, and you need to trim your budget where it's necessary, track the progress over time, and you set your goals accordingly. Remember, I said to you earlier, if you ended up with a zero after after you take away the expenses from the income and you end up with a zero, and it's okay, it's because if you think about it, your housing expenses are already included. Transportation already included. Food already included. Savings already included. Tithes already included. What else is there for you to spend money on? Nothing, because they're all in the budget. Next slide. So when I say the tithes and offering, just a reminder for those who might be questioning or not sure or not remembering, your tithe is 10% of your earnings, right? And the offering, while the Bible did not state a specific amount, your offering is basically a sign of appreciation for all that God has done for you. So the tithes, it belongs to God. It's holy. He specifies it. It's an act of worship, expresses your loyalty and all of that. But your offering is what shows your gratitude toward God for what he has done for you. Next slide. Now, let's go down into the savings a little bit more. Now, savings is a portion of income that is not spent on current expenditure. In other words, money set aside for future use and not spent immediately. Savings is important for both establishing a baseline of financial stability and getting to explore opportunities beyond just meeting the necessities of life. Right? So you are encouraged. I encourage my clients to save for everything that they wish to have. So if you need to go on vacation, you should have a vacation account. If you need to buy a house, you should have a housing account. If you need to buy a car, you should have an account just for your car savings. Right? It is best to save for everything that you want. So when it's time, if you go on a vacation, you can spend the money and you don't have to use your credit card, because guess what? You already saved for it. It helps to live a debt-free life. And when you're saving, you're not just saving for now, because you're not spending the money right away. So you'll be able to enjoy your retirement. And if anything comes up, you'll be able to cover those unexpected expenses. Next slide. So now in terms of the emergency fund, whenever I talk to my clients about emergency fund and I ask them if they have it, most times they say, of course I do. Of course I do. It's one of my savings accounts. Oh, no. That's not your emergency fund. An emergency fund is a separate savings or bank account used to cover or offset the expense of an unforeseen situation. Which means going on a vacation is not an emergency. Going out to eat dinner is not an emergency. Going to get your hair done or shopping or buying a birthday gift, that's not an emergency, right? An emergency is something that you cannot plan for, because it just happened. It's unexpected. So say, for instance, somebody got sick or loss of an income, or something in the house broke. Say, for instance, your heater and you need to fix it. Those are unexpected events. Why is it important? When you have an emergency fund, you're able to avoid debt, which means you won't have to swipe your credit card and not show where the money is coming from to fix the car or to fix the heater. or to pay for the medical bills. Remember the trivia question? Why most people are in debt? Medical bills. So with that being said, it is unexpected. So we need to have an emergency fund to cover that. According to lendingtree.com, it says a report published in December 23, it says 58% of Americans have no emergency fund, and that 40% would use a credit card to pay for any surprise expense. Right? How should you save it? How much should you save? Basically, it depends on the size of your family. But where should you start? You need to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in that account. Just sitting there, not doing a thing. So if you don't have any emergencies, you don't need to spend it. You don't spend it at all. It's just sitting there. And it's not just 3 to 6 months. If you have a bigger size family, 6 people, 7 people, 8 people, then you need to aim for 6 to 9 months of expenses. Right? And where should you keep the money? You keep it in a high yielding savings account. Those accounts tend to give you higher interest rates and also quick availability in terms of access. You need to be able to can get the money today if you need it, or even tomorrow if you need it. Try not to put it in any investment tools such as stocks and mutual funds, because those things may lose value because it goes up and down with the stock market, as well as when you need the funds, it might not be available. Next slide. Now that is all on money. Well, the first portion of it. Let's go to debt management. And this is something huge and something that we all have to work with. We all have to deal with it. A debt is a duty or obligation to pay money, deliver goods, or render service under an express or implied agreement. Basically, the person who borrows the money, you are the debtor or the borrower, and the person who the money is owed to is the creditor or the lender. Debt management is the ability to prioritize debt repayment within limitations of your budget. Next slide. When you tackle your debts, you can become debt free, and it will help you to have more money available to save each month. Now, what are some of the reasons why we have so much debt in our country? Consumptive lifestyle. We want to live like the Joneses. We just want to spend and not care. Ease of credit. Every day you get a credit card offer in the mail. Easy. You just sign your name and you get a credit or you get a loan. Recreational toys, just changing your phones because we need to change it, or it's because we need the latest version, or buying things that are unnecessary just because you like it. A lot of people are eating out instead of cooking at home. Unexpected bills, I mentioned that before. Reduction in income, somebody in the house stop working and not having a budget or a spending plan. No, I'm not saying you should not be buying recreational toys or not going out to eat, but these are some of the issues that we are experiencing in the country, and while the debts have been increasing, that's because people are spending and they cannot afford it. Now, some red flags for you to think about. If you're paying your bills late, monthly, every month, every bill, you're paying it late, then you're having a problem. If you keep on have to be living on credit, using your credit card for everything and not able to pay it back, you're having a problem. If you have to be worrying about your finances, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to buy this food or whatever it is? It's a red flag. And if you're not able to contribute, basically to return your tithes and offering as though you're supposed to, and also if somebody in need, a family member in need, or so you cannot even assist them, something, you can be managing your money a little bit different. Next slide. So some of the techniques that we need to look at, so you have different ways of managing debt. So when I say debt management, it's not saying that you're not going to use debt, because this is America, you have to use debt. It's a part of the whole thing. You have to use credit. So there are different techniques that you can implement in your day-to-day life where it doesn't become a burden for you. And the first one is zero-based budgeting, basically including everything in your budget. And again, at the end of the day, if you have a zero, you're good. That means if you're able to continue with your budget on each and every month, and you're paying what you're supposed to be paying, especially on those credit cards, and you're not paying back interest and all of that, that is one of the technique. Not everyone can use this method. Some people need to do a more rigid debt management technique, and I'll go further in that. The second one is to increase your income, and I went over that, how to increase your income, get another job, and so forth. You have reducing expenses, auto payment, automatic payment. So basically, instead of, sometimes some people cannot remember to pay their credit cards on time, or they cannot remember to pay the phone bill on time, or they're too busy. You can set up automatic payments from your account that it will go over to the creditors in a timely manner. You don't have to pay interest. Do not pay interest on something that you can control. Another one is credit settlement with creditors. Sometimes the creditors, all they need to know is that they're going to get their money. And there are times where you can go in and sit down and work out a plan. So if you know that you have a large amount in credit card balances and you need to get rid of them, you can go in and talk to these companies and say to them, this is my situation. How can you help me? I can afford, even if you have a medical bill, you can call the finance department of that that facility, and they have payment plans that you can put in place. So you don't have to put yourself to borrow the money from somewhere else to pay them. You can work out plans to pay it off. And the bigger one is the debt avalanche, the debt snowball, and debt consolidation. Next slide. So this screen basically gives you a breakdown of this repayment method. And this is when you have a lot of debts and you need to get rid of them, right? And you cannot manage them effectively. And when I say manage them effectively, if you're constantly paying interest, you're not managing them effectively. And if you just want to get rid of the loans that you have, you can use one of these methods. So the first one is the avalanche, right? First of all, you're going to list the highest to lowest interest rate loans. So you list them based on the interest rates. You have a 25%, a 15%, and 9%. Then you're going to pay off the highest interest loan beyond the minimum payment to get rid of it faster. But you have to continue to pay the minimum balance on all the other loans. And then you're going to do this every month until that debt is gone. And then you continue with the second highest. Now, if there's a case, say for instance, you have, for student loans, you have different student loan balances, or sometimes you have different student loans with different interest rates. You can use this method for the student loans if you want to get rid of the ones with the highest interest rates, right? You have, sometimes I've seen people with loans that are 40% high versus something with 18%. This is that method. Now, this one, the avalanche, it can be long. It can take you a longer time to finish, and you might lose your momentum along the way. So because of this, financial coaches tend to support more of the snowball effect. And this one is where you pay off the one with the smallest balance first. So you list your debts in order of the smallest balance to the highest balance. And no, we're not looking at interest rate, we're looking at the balances. The next thing is to pay more than, so say for instance, one of your debts is, say for instance, a credit card that is $1,000, and then you have a furniture loan which is $2,000. With the snowball, because of the credit card having 1,000, we're going to aim for that first. So you put all the extra money that you have on that credit card, and you still continue to pay on the remaining loans that you have. When you're finished and you finish paying out that one, the money that you used to use on the credit card, now you can put it to the next debt in line. This one will help you for a feeling of accomplishment. So you want to lose weight, you want to lose 100 pounds. But instead of giving you a target of 100 pounds, that sounds like a big target. You give yourself 10 pounds and then 10 pounds and then 10 pounds. So when you've reached your first 10 pounds in weight loss, you celebrate, you feel nice, you can go to the next 10 pounds. So this is that method. It keeps you motivated along the way while you try to get rid of the debts. And then the third one is home equity line of credit, or if you want to call it the consolidation loan. Basically, if you have a house, you can take a home equity line of credit, and normally it has a lower interest rate than all other loans out there. You use that money that you use from the credit, pay off all the debts, and then you just make one payment each month, and then you continue until you're finished. Now, if you take a home equity loan or do a debt consolidation, you cannot go and continue using those credits. You cannot, because then you're adding more credit to what you just paid off. Okay, so in terms of which method for you to use, it depends on your situation. Not one cap fits everyone. It just depends on where you are in life and what your goals are and what you need to accomplish. Next slide. Now, in terms of credit scores. So this is a part of the presentation because we'll be going into real estate. And your credit score plays a big part of real estate. Now, when you have a healthy credit score, it means that you have a good number, you're able to read your credit report, and it means that you're using your credit, not just a credit card, but you're using your credit responsibly. Next slide. So the credit is the ability a healthy credit is the ability of the consumer to acquire goods and services prior to payment with the faith that the payment will be made in the future. So that is what credit is. So you go to somebody, the lender, they will give you money in good faith that you will pay it back, and according to the arrangement and the agreement. Now, I just spoke to you about getting rid of your debts, and now I'm telling you about your credit. How life is, you have to know how to manage your credit, manage your debts. So some people have to just pause and rebuild. Some people can continue and get better, right? But this information especially is something for you to share with your younger children, but especially before they go off to college. Most young people, when I've spoken to them, they said to me, if I had known about how credit work and how credit cards work, I would not have gotten myself into XYZ situation, right? Having a healthy credit score is important because it's a financial indicator that shows the lenders that you're able to repay your debts. So what you don't know, it doesn't mean that you say for instance, I'm not going to buy any house, I don't need to have good credit, I'll just use cash and everything. Even if you're doing a rent, you're taking out a rent, the landlords, most times they run your credit to see how you're paying. And I've seen cases as well in terms of jobs, the type of jobs that you try to get. They will do a background history on you, and included in that, sometimes it's a credit pull. And if you have a very low credit score, it shows that you're not paying your bills on time. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that can affect you from getting that job. Before I was hired, they asked me When I just came to the country and I got a job, they asked me why didn't I have a credit history? I had to write an explanation to let them know it's because I'm just migrating to the country. So it is something that is real. A high credit score can help you to qualify for better interest rates and loan terms. So when you have people who say that they have 26% loan, 40% loan, is because their credit is not good. When you have good credit, you can negotiate the terms of your loans. Next slide. Now, in terms of the score, I asked this question also earlier about the numbers and everything. Your credit score is basically information given in a credit report. That report is a compilation of all anything that was loaned to you. So if you have a credit card, if you have like a car loan, mortgage, all of that is compiling in a report, and it is sent out from the credit reporting companies. The three major reporting companies that are used is the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. If your score is below 580, you have a very poor score, which means you're not going to have the backbone to say, okay, let me negotiate the interest rates or the terms of my loans, or it can even affect your job. You go into the fear bracket when you're between 580 and 669. You're getting there, but you're not there. In terms of the good numbers, it's 670 to 739. That is good. Most times lenders, you can get a favorable interest rate when it comes on to this score. 740 to 799, that is very good. And if you're over 800, it goes to a max of 850. That is very excellent. It tells me that I can trust you, right? Next slide. Now, what makes up my credit score? A lot of people are not aware of this information. So in terms of your credit score, is 5 components. Amounts owed, that takes up 30%, and that is how much do you owe on each account and how much of it is your credit limit you have actually used. So if you get a credit card with a limit of $1,000 or $10,000, and your balance on the credit card is $9,000, you have used up 90% of that credit limit. And that is not looking good. You don't want to max out the limit. You want to keep it as low as possible, because 30% of it, that calculation, affects your score. The next category is your payment history, and that is the highest segment, 35%. Have you been paying your bills on time over the years? How many times were you late? How many times you did not pay? And how often? When the creditors get your credit report, they will be able to sit down and they can tell you all of this information. And I've seen cases where in order for you to get a loan, you have to explain why this happened. The next category is your credit history. How long have you had each account? So when you're just starting out and you get your credit cards and everything, and you only have, say, 2 years, 3 years history on it, even if you're not using the store card, don't close the account. You can stop using the account, but do not close the account. When you close it, you're closing out your history. If you're, say, 20 years in terms of your credit report, then you're good. You can close out the unneeded, the ones that you're not needed. You can close those out. But if you're just starting out, you just come in the country, you just finished college, you're just starting out, this is, you want to hold on to the history as long as possible. New credit. How many credit requests have you made? And how many how many times your report have been pulled? And that is 10%. Now, if your credit has been pulled multiple times with a short span, it can reduce your credit score. So if you know, if you go to us, if say for instance you're looking for a car, make sure that you shop around before you have them pull in your credit, because each time they pull your credit, it can lower the score. And the last category, which is 10%, is the type of credit that you have. Whether it is revolving, which is a credit card, whether it is like your mortgages and what type of loans, medical, and so forth. All of these factors, they look at it to determine if they should, how your credit score will be calculated, basically. So again, when you have the higher score, it helps you to qualify for better interest rates and better loan terms. If your score is low now, it does take some time for you to build it up. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it's 6 months. It depends on how you use it. Also, when you have your credit cards, you need to pay off what you owe. The minimum balance on a credit card is just to say if you pay below this amount, it will be considered as you not paying. So if you have a credit card statement, and you need to learn how to use your read your credit card statement. If you have a credit card statement and when you look at it, you owe $400, minimum payment is $70, and if you only pay 80, you're going to pay interest on the entire 400, not on what is left, not on the $320 that is left, but on the complete $400. And if you pay anything below the $70, if you pay $69.99, it is still not 70, which means you're going to pay interest on the entire 400, and then you're going to pay a late fee because it will be considered as you not paying at all. So these are some of the things that affects our credit over time, and we have to look at them, think about them, plan about them, and work each and every day. You can stop sharing. Oh, sorry, I think I have one more slide. Ways to build your credit. If you're just starting out, you can apply for a credit card. You have the secured card. That is you putting down your money at a bank, and they give you a card and they watch how you use it. They evaluate how you use it. After a period of time, they will send the money to give you back to you and give you their money. You can become an authorized user. So for those who have children, young adults, you can add them to a card, and that will help to build their credit. But after a while, they will need to get their own credit, because authorized user will work for some lenders, but not for everything. Be careful when you're closing accounts. So again, if you have a long history, you can go ahead if you're not using the accounts. But if you're just starting out, be mindful of how quickly you close them and which ones you close. Develop a long credit history and build and maintain good credit habits. How do you get good credit habits? Making timely payments on all your accounts, by having your budget, by paying off the entire statement balance on your credit card, by staying below your limits. Be careful with credit applications. So not because you're getting the offers, that means you need to respond to them. If you don't need it, don't take it. And monitor your credit report and your credit score. Every bank offers free credit. Well, most banks offer free credit scores, so you can look at it, and also the report. Experian, I know, different agency, I know that they have, you can sign up an account and then you can see your credit, and it is free. At least sign that up so you can keep abreast of everything. You don't want people to take out credit in your name and you did not know about it. You have to stay abreast and stay on top of your finances. And I think that's the last slide, right, Jonathan? Next one.
That is it.
That is it. Good. So you can stop sharing. And that is the end of segment 1. Any questions? Wow.
So
No question?
we'll take questions. If anyone wants to write it, to put it in the chat, we'll take questions. And then we'll have a 5 minutes break.
Okay.
Okay. I do have questions. I'm surprised that there's none. Okay, so you spoke on medical bills, right? This unexpected, medical bills. How should a family, a couple prepare for, for these medical emergencies?
So the first thing that you can have, you need to start out by having your emergency fund. Remember, I said you can save for anything that you want, right? So you have there are different accounts that you can have. The high yielding savings account is one that gives you a good interest rate. That is, so you can just save. So if you have any medical bills come up, you can pay for that. But then you also have life insurances that you can use, and you can benefit while you're living from your life insurance. So with that being said, you'd have to speak with the agent, with the company to see what they offer in terms of there are policies out there that can help you with critical illness. So say for instance that big C credit cancer, they have policies that can help you if that happens. You have some that can help you with life accidents. So if you any dismemberment of your body, you can get funds from that depending on your job, depending on what you signed up for. So there are many other tools that you can put in place to plan for these unexpected expenses.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Also, Jonathan, just remind us of the health savings account that we all have at our jobs. You can put that in place as well.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so you know what? We're going to continue. Well, with the 5 minutes break. I think we're going to continue. Hopefully Jonathan is ready. Thank you so much, Nikki. Okay. I'm surprised there's no questions.
I guess.
I know. I think you covered mostly everything, to be quite honest.
That's the hope.
Because even with that question, medical, I know you said that we shouldn't invest it. Our whatever savings or emergency fund shouldn't be invested. It should sit there in a high yield.
Correct. Because if you invest the emergency fund, it moves along with the stock market, and you don't want the money that you're saving for unexpected expenses be going up and down. Anything can happen depending on how the market feels. So you don't want that money to have the ability of going down. You want it to always be going up.
Be going up. Okay, we do have a question. What percentage of your credit should you use? I suppose. Well, what percentage of the card of the money on your card should be used? Is it 50? Is it 30? Is it 10?
So if you're using, so first of all, you don't want to max. So up to 50-60% of your card, that is good. However, some people just have one card and they use their card, but at the end of each month, they pay off all that they have used. So when that statement is generated, the balance is little to nothing.
Okay.
So if you have a $9,000 card and you use $8,000 of it every month, but you paid off all 8,000, then you're good. When the report is sent over to the credit reporting agency, it will show a smaller amount because you actually paid off what you use.
And how much of it should you pay off?
Pay off everything that you owe for the period.
For the period. Okay. We have another question. Somebody's trying to get out of debt, but they don't see a way out. Is that person doomed?
No. No.
Okay. No. Okay.
You just need to start with what you have. And that is a loaded question. So they can call me afterwards. We can sort it out. But it's not doom. We're still living, so there's a possibility for everything.
Okay. And you know what why I asked the question about the credit, how much percentage should you pay? Because it's almost like you have to develop a history, right? And not having a balance, like paying it off means that still doesn't show how responsible you are with money.
No, if
You
you
pay it.
so you have two different ways to pay off. You can pay off, you have your statement balance and you have your account balance.
Mm-hmm.
The statement is just for the period. The account is overall, including the period and what you have used after the statement has been generated.
Mm-hmm. But if
And I
you
have, so the statement is
Mhm.
just for a period, maybe from January 1 to January 30th, 31st.
Mhm.
Overall is even if that account is due February 15th, the amount that you use after January 31st, that will be included in your overall balance.
Okay.
So always pay off your statement balance at minimum. Well, if
Oh,
the,
okay.
the worst case is to pay more than the minimum payment that is on
Okay.
your statement, but you're going to pay interest. Now, if you want to be on top of things, pay off your statement balance, which is for the period,
Okay. Okay.
right? And you have some people who pay off the whole account. But with that being said, anyone you just pay and pay on time, your credit score will go up.
Okay.
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 We
Thank
have to
you.
we have to go
Yes.
over to Jonathan now.
Okay, Jonathan, we're ready for you. Thanks so much, Nikki.
All right. Thank you so much for giving that thorough presentation on the subjects of money management. And of course, even though, if you were there a few years ago when Nikisha and I, we did a program at Hanson Place actually a few years ago, we always say that even if you've heard the information in the past, it's always good to have the opportunity to hear it again, because a lot of times we forget it. And that is where issues arise, because our memories are not able to recall things you sometimes within even the last 10-15 minutes. So hopefully with all of the repetition of knowledge and education that you're acquiring, you can of course apply that, but also teach your family. If you have children, start educating them now on these subjects. If you're married, have these conversations with your spouse, especially as we are heading into this new year. I would say this is the year to definitely become more astute on these topics that were discussed. And so as we proceed with the next subject, which is on real estate, as Sister Nicholas mentioned, if you have any questions, we'll take it at the end, and we'll proceed from there. So the purpose of discussing this is to educate you on the why, the how, and the when. One of the most interesting things that I have discovered, a recent study, is they found that for most people, a home is their largest asset and accounts for over 80% of wealth at retirement. Before I got within the real estate industry, I was working within the financial field, dealing with hundreds of individuals, helping them to once again, put their budget in place, set up investment accounts, all those different things. But what I have found is that as they are nearing the time of retirement, where they usually do not have enough coming in from their pension or their Social Security, usually the only other vehicle or asset that they have is their home. And we're not, of course, telling every individual, if they don't have a retirement, to resort to selling your home so you can take the money out, or do a reverse mortgage or things like that. But understand that having a home is a huge thing. But what is shocking is that across the different demographics in America today, we have found that most individuals usually will have a bank account. They'll have their savings, their checking accounts. They'll go to the bank once, every week to cash out money or to deposit money. And across the different demographics, we find that over 90% of individuals within these demographics, they have financial accounts. Over 70% of individuals drive a vehicle. But when it comes to a primary residence, we find that only one demographic, actually over 70% of them, actually own their own home, while the remainder, actually it's under 60%. Within the Black community, only 40% of Blacks have their own home. And so if we are looking at the future, you're nearing the time of retirement, unfortunately, it's going to be a huge shortfall for certain demographics because they were etched out of the opportunity to acquire a home of their own. And we know in history there has been a lot of reasons behind that, but we are not here to point fingers or to play the victim card right now. What we are here to do is to show you how to enter into that category of home ownership. And this is the reason why my wife and I are, driven every single day, especially with her background, coming from a similar background in real estate and with my experience in finance and dealing with hundreds of individuals. We wanted to allow for individuals to be prepared in every aspect of their finances, especially with the biggest asset that most times will be home ownership. And I believe if it is possible that every individual should have the opportunity to call a place their own. The president that just recently passed, prayers to his family, Jimmy Carter, he said one of the basic human rights is housing. The right not only to have a place to live, but to have it be your own. You see, when God created the earth, I would say that God was the first real estate developer, and he decided to place Adam and Eve in the most beautiful place, the most beautiful, land out of all the other areas, which was the Garden of Eden. And note that God, he developed the land and made sure that it was a place that they could call home, that they could raise a family. Unfortunately, we know what happens in Genesis 3, where they are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. But God gave them the opportunity to have dominion over the land, to have a part of ownership, to be a steward of the land. And guess what? God is not creating any more land until he returns again. And so while we are here on the earth, I believe every single individual should understand that when it comes to land and home ownership, God has given us all the opportunity to be stewards of the land that is here on this earth. Unfortunately, of course, certain individuals have been discriminated. They have faced issues in the past, but there is no greater time than now. Even though, of course, prices are outrageous and, there are so many other things that may hinder an individual, I believe the first step is education. Once you have the education on this subject, you can then take the next step of implementation. And so as we are proceeding here, as I mentioned to you, my wife and I's mission is to educate individuals about real estate, but also to help people no matter their budget and to transform their homes into personalized paradises, but more importantly, to maximize and preserve the wealth generated from real estate ownership for future generations. Our motto is learn, own, and live. And so as we proceed, the agenda, and with time, I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but definitely put down your questions that you may have. But we're just going to go through 5 different subjects. And the first one is the reasons to invest in real estate. Now, if you don't know, when it comes to real estate, one of the greatest advantages of having a place of your own is that it builds equity. And this is the reason why, for most individuals, it makes up nearly 80% of their entire net worth, because with a home, right? If you look at the average price point of a home right now in America, it's around $600,000. Let's just say an individual, they owe, after, let's say, the last 10 years, they owe about $400,000 left on the home. 600,000 is what it's worth, and they owe 400,000. That's $200,000, what we call equity. And the average home grows at a rate of 3% every year. And that 3% is not growing based off of the equity, off of the amount you owe on the mortgage. It's growing based off of the entire value of that property, which would be 600,000. So if every year that property is increasing by 3%, in a matter of time, it will accrue close to over $1 million in value. And while your mortgage is decreasing, the equity within it is increasing. Unfortunately, when it comes to renting, while you are able to have a place that you can temporarily call your own, and there's nothing wrong with renting. There's a time for, each stage in our life. For some, we rent and then we own. It's okay. We're not to look down on you, but when it comes to renting, you don't have the opportunity to build any equity. Instead, you're actually making a mortgage payment without the equity attached, because you're assisting the individual that owns the property. And as time progresses, it can definitely eat a lot of your financial portfolio. And so one of the first things I always tell individuals, when you're purchasing a property, understand that it is a financial asset. The second thing is that there are tax benefits associated with it. And this is what I call a financial incentive. Now, when it comes to taxes, I am not a tax professional, so I would recommend speaking with a CPA on this when it comes to taxes. But if you have a home and you itemize your deductions, you're able to deduct it on your taxes. You don't take a standard deduction. What happens is you are able to deduct the mortgage interest, the property taxes, and certain buying costs. And that's if you're, let's say, for example, going to put solar in there. All of those different features that you purchase and acquire, that can give you credit, can help reduce your tax bill when it comes time to pay tax on April 15, which happens to be my birthday, right? But also on top of that, if you sell that property, if you're single, you can get up to $250,000 excluded from the profit for federal taxes. And if you're married, over $500,000. And so unlike retirement accounts where they are going to take tax on the profit automatically, or if you have your money even in a basic savings account, like Nikisha mentioned, a high yield savings, and that interest, it grows over $600 in a year, you will be taxed on it. But having a home, and if you were either to keep it over the remainder of years and have itemized deductions, or you were to sell that property, you have an opportunity to reap the tax benefits. Also, on top of that, it provides security and stability, what we call a family foundation. And I believe that every individual, especially if they are raising children that are under the age of 10, right? It is important, it is crucial, it is imperative that they have a place that is not chaotic, that is not, causing too much harm or chaos, or it is detrimental to their own health. They need to have a peaceful place. And that is one of the beautiful things about having a place of your own, instead of having people knocking down your door and this and that, right? Unless, of course, you live in certain areas in New York City and you still don't have that space of your own per se, but at least you can, have the ability to be able to raise a family and just at least be in your bubble, right? And there has been studies that have found that it actually improves the mental health and academic performance of children. And so it is a wonderful, thing when an individual has an opportunity to acquire property, but also is when it comes to wealth generation. When we look into the Bible, if you look at all of the patriarchs, we start off with Abraham. When he was preparing himself to pass away, he made sure to pass down all that he had to his son Isaac. And then after Isaac, we find that he passes everything down to Jacob. And we go all the way down, and we find that one of the biggest assets that they had was the land, right? Even though they lived in tents, right, for a period of time, that was passed down. And so one of the wonderful things that having real estate allows you to do is to pass the property into your children's name and create that generational wealth in which no one can take it from you unless you don't pay your taxes. If you paid off your mortgage and you haven't paid your property taxes, or let's say what's happening right now, unfortunately, in California, where they don't have insurance and, it wipes out their home. In those situations, of course, we can't do anything. But outside of that, if God, protects and, preserves your home in your name, that is a legacy that you can pass down. All right. So as we proceed, one of the things to understand is that the two most common barriers that individuals usually are put up against when it comes to purchasing a property, a lot of people think it's the interest rates or it's the price of properties. But the number one barrier is the down payment. Most individuals usually, they don't know how much they need to save. They don't have anything saved and they do not know how to do it. But besides the down payment, it's important that you understand the process from point A to point Z. Understand that purchasing a property will most times be the largest expense you will ever have in your life, but it could also be the most profitable investment that you'll ever have in your life. And so how you start is as important as how you finish. And so the first thing is to understand your financial picture. If you're single, tuning in right now, review, as Nikisha mentioned, review your finances before you go on Zillow and look at all these homes. Understand where you are financially at this particular moment. If you're married, same thing. Start reviewing where you stand financially. And while you're observing your financial situation, when it comes to a down payment, which is usually the most common barrier, understand that depending on the lender, most lenders usually state that you need to put down at least 3%. That's right now the numbers. Before that, it was for a typical conventional loan, it was at 5%. And then FHA said, we're going to reduce it down to 3.5%. Conventional loans, they said, let's reduce it down to 3%, right? And so right now, that is the lowest amount that an individual will need to purchase a property. Now, of course, if you are also in New York as myself, the average price of a home is ranging between $600,000 to $800,000. So alone, just for having a home, let's just say we're in the middle of that, $700,000, 3% of that is what? $21,000. And so people are like, oh, how am I going to save $21,000 for the down payment? Well, understand, and I'm going to have that on the next slide, there are ways that you can one, receive assistance in the form of grants For example, I have a partnership with Chase Bank where we give grants, right, up to $7,500 for individuals purchasing a home. I believe in Nikisha's firm, they give up to about $10,000 in grants. And there are some one lender I know of where you don't even have to put anything down in purchasing a property, but it all depends on if you are eligible based off of your income in your household. But besides putting something aside for the down payment, understand that how you are spending your money each month is important, and also how your relationship is with any form of debts that you have. So if you have a car loan, if you have a credit card, all of those payments that you are making monthly affects what discretionary income you have left over. And so lenders, they want to make sure that you at least are only spending monthly in debt payments 43% or lower of your income. So for example, if you and your wife, you're together making $10,000, the banks want to make sure that you're only spending monthly $4,300 max in a month when it comes to debt. Generally, they would prefer that it's lower than that. And so the first thing you need to do is look at your budget, look how much you're spending each month on your student loans, on your credit cards, on your car loan. That's a big one. The average individual has a car payment of over $500 a month, So you need to look at all of those debts that you're paying monthly and see, can I get it below 43%? But also, are you paying them on time? Because that affects your credit score. And that is what I'm getting to next. When you look at the process of purchasing a home, you have to communicate with a bank unless you have the money upfront cash. If you have that ability, that is the best thing in the world, because you don't have to make any payments monthly for a mortgage. You're not going to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. But for most individuals, they usually have to go through the bank. And one of the biggest things that they're going to be looking at is your credit score. So once you sit down with the loan officer, they're going to pull your credit, and they're going to look at all of your credit payments, the history of your payments, also the lines of credit that you have. And even though you may think that they're only looking at the credit score, there are other things that they are looking at. But as far as credit score's sake, one of the things that it is recommended is to have a credit score at least over 700. But if you have a credit score lower than that, there are loan programs that allow you to do it as low as 580. But understand, the better your score is, the lower the interest rate will be when you are applying for that property, for that loan to get that property. So if possible, before you go in online and look for this property, that property, strengthen your credit score. And whoever's going to be on that loan, they also need to have a good credit score. It can't just be, husband has a 780 credit score, my wife has let's say a 400 credits. If you're both going to be on the loan, both of you need to have a good credit score. If you're going to have your son or daughter be on the loan, same thing applies. Whoever's on the loan needs to make sure that their credit is good. Now, as you get your credit fixed and adjusted, the next thing is to save for your home purchase. And I already mentioned about having something aside for the down payment. But there are also, as I mentioned before, there are grants and assistance programs that can help you to be able to raise enough funds to be able to purchase that property. So even though that is the most common barrier, because of a lack of education, most individuals usually do not know that there are still ways that you can get into a property, if it's a single family home or a multifamily property. So you should have already been working with the bank. And once the bank gives you the green light, the green light will be presented to you in the form of a pre-approval letter. And that is different from a pre-qualification. Most times, if your credit is good, you may get an email by the bank and they say you pre-qualify. Same thing with credit cards. You pre-qualify for this amount, but they still need you to do more in the application process. So the most legitimate document that you can ever acquire from the bank is a pre-approval letter. And within that pre-approval letter, it will tell you exactly the amount that the bank is willing to lend you to purchase that property. And one thing I would always say, especially if you are in New York right now, with the prices that we are seeing today, it is recommended, if possible, if it is not your spouse that you can have on that loan with you, either if you, let's say you're in your 50s and 60s, a single mother, single father, you have children, have your children work with your son or your daughter. Say, hey, let's purchase a property together. You combine heads together, you can be able to get a higher amount that you can qualify for the loan. If you have a great relationship with and you trust them with a family friend or one of the individuals within your family, sometimes you want to leave that, keep a little distance, you can also take that as a strategy to increase the amount that you qualify for. And the reason why that's important is because in order just to qualify for a loan, let's say about $600,000, you're going to need to earn close to about $100,000 gross income. And so if you're not earning that amount, right, that is going to just mean that you're going to need extra help. And that is what I have found, that a lot of these other demographics, that is what they do. They either have, one of their family members on the loan with them. They also either have their children on a loan. Unless they're married, they have their spouse. Very rare am I finding right now that it's just one person buying the property themselves. Okay. Now, you get the pre-approval from the bank. One of the things that you need to do is to make sure that you plan for the closing costs, which can be between 2 to 5%. And the banks usually will give you a loan estimate that tells you what your monthly payment would be each month based off of the amount that you are purchasing the property for. So these are the 5 steps in order to prepare yourself financially when it comes to purchasing a property. And for those individuals that believe that, hey, I don't even have even over $10,000 saved up, right? If you go to this link here through this QR code, screenshot this on your phone, all you would need to do is just put down your address or the address of the property that you're interested in purchasing, and it will show you all the programs that are available in your area. But of course, you have to be eligible for it, right? I have one of my clients right now. He's able to get up to $100,000 to assist with his down payment. And that program that he is a part of, the interest rate to pay back that amount that is loaned to him by the state is way lower than if he were to get that additional $100,000 from the bank, right? So there are wonderful programs that are out there. And if you would like to find out more, simply go to that link right there. Now, when it comes to searching for the property, you've gone through the process with the bank. Unless you have the cash, it's important, if you are intending to have a primary residence, to first examine the location, and if possible, consult with God before you say, I'm going to move here. I know a lot of Christians, they say, hey, all the Christians are moving down to this state. Everybody come down here. But hey, that may not be where God wants you. You see, in the book of Genesis, God told Abraham, actually it was his father first, that I want you to go to this land. And he got up, he took his entire family, he went there. God didn't tell him to go to another area. Let's say, for example, he didn't tell him to go to Asia, right, at that time. He told him, I want you to go to this land of Canaan. It's like, what? Why am I going to go there? But in the book of Acts, it tells us that God has appointed and placed every individual in the proper place that they need to be in their lifetime. And so I believe that God knows the exact place where you should move to. So consult with him. And for some, it may be to live still within the cities or near the cities. And that may be because there's a proximity of work and access to the schools and amenities. And for some, they say, hey, I want to live out in the country, right? I live out in the country with my wife right now. All I see at night and at morning are deers walking back and forth. I don't see anyone walking down my street, right? I said, because, you know, she's originally from Brooklyn. I'm originally from Queens. I said, the only people that gang up on us is the corn, right? Which is, you know, there's an abundance of corn, you know, next to us. But the thing is that when it comes to the area that you move to, understand that there are advantages and disadvantages in both. But when you're searching for a property, you need to take the time to, you find the home, drive through the area, if possible. Reach out to the neighbor, ask him or ask her, how is the neighborhood? How is the individuals that also live nearby? How are they treating you? All of those things, be informed so that you are not haunted after you purchase that home. But also you want to understand the condition of that home. Don't just rush to purchase the property because the price is right and you're happy. And this is very important. This is one of the reasons why I do what I do right now, because unfortunately my aunt passed away because she did not observe the condition of the home that she purchased. And within the home there was radon, and that permitted her to attain lung cancer. Radon is the second number one cause of lung cancer, and unfortunately she passed away from it, right? And that was because she did not do an inspection. She didn't understand the condition of the home. The price was right. She just bought it. And so it's important that you observe the condition with the inspector so that you know exactly what you're getting, that there are no issues, especially in New York City, where a lot of these homes, they may have lead, which can have a detrimental effect on your children. So definitely observe those two things when you are purchasing a primary residence. If you are intending to purchase an investment property, the two things that you should be focused on, once again, is location. You're not going to be, especially if you're buying a 2 or 3 unit property, you're not going to go and find a property that is in the country, completely rural, because no one is going to be living there, right? It's difficult for them to find a way to get to their work, and also for all of the different amusements and activities that are in the town or city. So that is, you have to be very mindful of the location, unless, of course, and that's if you're going to rent it out. If you're going to just fix and flip it, it may not matter if you purchase the property out in the rural areas, because you're just planning to sell it to a individual that would live there themselves, not so much to rent it out. But these are the things that are important, but also understanding the tenant laws, the zoning regulations where you are living. There's a huge difference with the tenant laws and rules and zoning regulations in Nassau County compared to Kings County, which is Brooklyn. And also state by state, there's a huge difference between the rules and laws that are in New York compared to Connecticut and also North Carolina. Every state is different. Some states, they can cause a lot of damage to you if you have tenants and they are not paying their rent. And some states, they say, hey, they're not paying rent, we can get them out in a second. Okay, so take the opportunity to assess the location, but also observe what is the income potential of that property. One of the first things that I always tell my investor clients is to look at how much can they earn on that property in comparison to the amount that they purchased the property for. And that is what we call the cap rate. But also you want to observe, if you're just trying to fix and flip, What are the costs to renovate the property? And when I fully renovate it, will I have enough when I sell the home? You know, a lot of people say, I'm going to buy a home for $30,000 down south, or $50,000 or $80,000, right? But the homes themselves are only worth about $100,000. So they will barely make any profit, right? So understand that sometimes what may seem appealing may not be appealing. And if you hear all of these individuals saying, hey, invest with us and buy this property, you know, be very cautious of that, because a lot of times individuals, they don't know that what they are investing into is actually going to cost a lot of work over the long haul. And so these are the 4 things: 2 for primary residence and 2 for investment properties when it comes to finding it. And I believe, as I always tell my clients, there is a place for everyone. You have to just be patient. You can't just, have the emotions take over the logic when purchasing this huge investment. Now, one of the things that I always tell clients, because of background in finance before, I always tell them, if possible, I believe that you should have a goal to pay off your mortgage in half the time. The average individual has a loan for over 30 years, but a lot of times people do not pay attention to how much they are going to be giving to the bank over those 30 years, right? If you take the average amount that you purchased the property for and you span it out 30 years, most times the individuals will be paying 3 times the amount that they bought the property for. So instead of them getting the property for $500,000 and paying $500,000 alone, they will pay up $1.5 million because of that interest rate that was around 4, 5, 6, or 7%. So I always tell my clients, as soon as you begin your mortgage payments, have a strategy to pay it off as soon as possible. These are how banks make the most of their money, also through commercial real estate as well. But this is how they make their money. And it can eat a lot over the long haul, because most individuals that are retiring right now, they still have a mortgage and it's their largest expense. You don't want to have a mortgage when you're entering into retirement, because it can eat up a lot of your money if you're just relying on Social Security. So how do you do it? The first thing is, if you have a mortgage payment right now, the easiest thing that you could do is to round up your payments. So if your payment right now a month is $3,236, I want you to round that up to $3,300. Okay? So that $50, $60, $70 extra, I'm going to show you what that can do in as far as your mortgage. Now, if you have done that, the second thing that I would do, now right now the interest rates are not that good across the board, but we do hope that interest rates will drop, is to look into the options of refinancing. You don't have to use the same bank. You can scan through different lenders and find which one will give you the best package. But you want to see if you can reduce the term of your loan. So if you have a 30-year loan, see if you could reduce it down by half. 15-year loan. When you reduce the amount of years, it also reduces the amount of interest that the bank will charge. And if you have a higher credit score, even better. Now, right now, while interest rates are ridiculous, it may not make sense to refinance at this time. Instead, what you should do is to make extra principal payments. And a lot of times this is going to require for you to have additional money each month. But I'm going to show you in a second what just an extra $50 a month could do to your mortgage payment. And the reason why it's important that you do that is because for most loans, the mortgages are what we call front-loaded debts, where at the beginning, they will charge you the most for interest out of your monthly payment. So let's say you have a $3,000 monthly mortgage. About 80% of that $3,000 is going to interest, while only 20% is going to principal. It takes about 21 out of the 30 years for your interest out of that 3,000 to be lower, so that more money is going to the principal. So what I mean by that is it will take you about the 21st year for out of that $3,000 payment where 80% of that is going towards principal, while only 20% is going to interest. And a lot of times people don't understand that. And banks do that because they know the average individual will only stay in that home for 8 to 13 years. So they say, let's make the most amount of money on them in the beginning. And also, if they foreclose on the property, we can still make a huge cut on our own. So understand that the banks are not your best friends when it comes to acquiring a property, but understand that having the bank is an opportunity to leverage your assets so that you can get a larger asset. So two things that I recommend that you do is if you have any bonuses, tax refunds, any rental income or side income, add that towards your mortgage principal. Contact your bank and say, hey, I have an extra $2,000. I would like to put this directly towards the principal. When you ask them to add it to your principal, it reduces your interest payment because they are charging 6% off of the principal balance. If it's, let's say, $500,000. So if you only owe $400,000, they're only making 6% off of the $400,000. So every additional dollar that you have, and I recommend to do this if you have knocked off all of the other debts, such as your credit cards, your car loans, then take this as the next item to knock out, because credit cards are like 20-30%. that they'll make even more money off of that. But let me just show you what an additional 10% can do to your mortgage. So I have a client right now. We just got her and her daughter a property. It was about $600,000. And after she purchased the property, she said, Jonathan, I want to pay this property off as soon as possible. I said, let's do it. So she had about $600,000 that she bought the property for. If she made no additional payment, she will end up paying $1.2 million over the long haul over those 30 years, right? Now, her payment is around $4,000 a month. Ooh, really high, right? But that's the average amount right now. But $4,000, I say, if you just add an additional 10%. So $4,000, what is 10% of $4,000? Let me just show my screen. What is 10% of $4,000? 10% of $4,000 is about $400, right? So if she just adds 10%, it will save her $187,000 on interest, and she could potentially pay off her home in 7 years sooner. Okay. So right now, if you have the opportunity, look at your mortgage payment and say, I want to add 10% extra monthly to my principal. If you can't do that yet, start off by just rounding your monthly payment to a round number. Start off that way, right? Because even just adding an extra $50 in this case would shave off 1 year and also saving $32,000. Now, if you want to pay off your mortgage in half the time, the secret number is floating around 30 to 40% additional. So if she's making about $4,000 a month, what is 30% of that number? That's 1,200. So we add about 1,200. This one floated around 1,250. It would pay it off in about 14 years in 1 month. So close to 15 years, but she would save over $361,000 in interest. That money could be used for retirement, right? If you paid off earlier, you could catch up on retirement, right? So understand that if you've paid off your credit cards, your car loan, and you have extra money at the end of each month, don't use it to splurge. use it to pay off the mortgage, because when you hit the time of retirement, when most people don't have as much money, you're going to be wishing that you had paid off that mortgage on time. Now, if you would like to use that tool that I have, I'm going to have it right here at the end. You could just screenshot this and you'll have access to the same exact tool that I provide my clients so that you can know how to pay off your mortgage earlier, also see the value of your property, and also see what are the equity, insights, and rental values over time. I'm just screenshotting that because of time, but I only have one slide left, okay? So screenshot that, 3, 2, 1. Now you have the home, you're working on paying off the property as soon as you can. One of the things that I always recommend individuals to do, because you never know how long you're going to be living there, understand that what we have is truly not completely ours 100%. All we are stewards, right? So the property that we have, even if you're renting, you are a steward. God has given you the opportunity to be responsible where you are living. And I recommend every individual, if you have a property right now, if you want to boost the value of your home, the greatest thing that you can do is to deep-clean and declutter, right? This should be your number one goal this year. You see, my life before I got married, I could keep my place looking like a wreck. Once I got married, I got to pick up every single crumb that is on the floor because of my wife. And I'm grateful for it because, right, if somebody comes and visits once in a while, like, hey, what's going on? The place looks like a mess, right? That actually will affect your own mental sanity. So if you have a property, make it your goal this year to deep clean and declutter your property. Start one room at a time. It should not be looking like a mess. How do we know so? Because when Jesus was in his rental property, which was the tomb, when he was, in the grave just for a few nights, when he left, he folded what was there. So when people came in, they said, whoa, he actually has this place in order, right? So we need to do the same. Everything that we have, within our reach, make sure it's ordered and orderly and in its place. And it's very simple. And also teach that to your children. They say that, giving chores to children, it actually improves their vocational skills when they get older. So first thing is deep clean and declutter. The second thing is, if possible, redo the paint in your home. Start room by room, right? Try to get colors that actually blend with the environment and also complement the home, right? Don't choose colors that are off, right? And if it's peeling, take it down, start it over, right? And it's very inexpensive to buy, a paint and just start one room at a time, and do that with your family. It's a great bonding time. The next thing that you should do after you put a fresh paint, is to do a bathroom refresh. We have found that the two most important things that you could ever improve in your home, especially if you're intending to sell it, is your bathroom and your kitchen. Those are the two most important things that you could ever improve in your property, especially if you're wanting to sell it. Also, if possible, have some smart home upgrades. Then after that, make some minor landscaping adjustments, fix the yard, make sure they're on patches all throughout the yard, so that is number 5. Number 6, as I mentioned, is kitchen touch-ups. And, this may cost money, but as time progresses and you see that you have an extra amount of funds left over, take the opportunity to invest in the property and improve its condition. It will definitely boost your mood and make it turn into a place that you could truly say, this is my paradise. This is my Garden of Eden. Okay. Number 7 is to put in energy efficient improvements. Okay. Now, if you are not able to do any of these things, the most important thing that you could ever do that only 41% of homeowners do is to have a seasonal maintenance, check-in every single year, every single year. I believe that is the most important thing that you can ever do, because this will affect the long-term value of your property. If you are not sealing up your windows, if you are not checking on your roof and making sure the shingles are in its place, it's going to have long-term effects that will cost a lot over the long haul. Just like if you have a car and you don't put oil into it, it's going to have problems in the long run, which is going to cost thousands of dollars. So these are a few things that you can do if you have the property and you want to boost the value. So I am finished right now. I am at the end. The time is already 8:05. But if you have, if you're just now tuning in, again, just to give you in a nutshell, what I discussed is exactly one, how to, reasons to invest in real estate, how to prepare to purchasing a property, how to find the ideal property, how to pay off the mortgage in half the time, and lastly, how to boost your home value. And with that, I hope that this year could be the year that you do something remarkable with your family if you do not have a home just yet. So with that, I will open it for any questions. Should we do that right now, Nicholas?
We're gonna take the questions afterwards because yes, it's 8:06. We will jump into trust and will, and then we'll take all the questions at the end.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Perfect. All right.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was a lot. It is a lot. It took me 25 years to learn all of this. So the people on this chat are blessed.
All right. Okay, so stick with us just a little longer. Don't leave just yet. Don't fall asleep. We'll pass it back down to Nikisha.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks so much.
Okay, awesome. So basically, estate planning, it has different handles on it. You have probate, you have wills, power of attorney, trust, and advanced healthcare directive. But for this evening, we'll be looking at estate planning. And so estate planning is a process of anticipating and arranging for the management and the disposal of a person's estate during life in preparation for future incapacity or in death. So basically, you're making plans for what can happen when you can't make decisions for yourself and what will happen after you die. Next slide. It is important, takeaway, it is important to work with an attorney and possibly a tax advisor on your estate plan. So they have a lot of complex parts that they need to discuss with you, as well as each state have their own rules and regulations. So our takeaway, speak with your attorney and your tax advisor. Now, with estate planning, you will make the decisions, but they can help you think through it and to understand the different complex implications of each options. So basically, they will break it down for you to understand so you can do what you need to do. They will also help to communicate your wishes clearly and avoid any mistakes, minimize taxes, and adjust your plans as times go by and or your situation changes. When it comes down to estate planning, it's not a one-time thing and done. You have to over time go back to it to ensure that information that is there suits your needs at the time. Next slide. Now, in terms of a will is a legal document that coordinates the distribution of your assets after death and can appoint guardians for minor children. Now, your will must be in writing. So this is just the main parts of a will. There are others depending on the states, but this is the main parts of a will. It must be in writing. It must have a date, and you need to sign it. You must have at least 2 witnesses, and they need to sign it, and also they need to add their addresses under their signature. Now, when you're getting this done, you will need to meet with with a lawyer or what you call it there, those people who can stamp to say, yes, I've approved your
The notary.
signatures, notary,
Yeah.
right? So you will need to be, this needs to be done. The witnesses will need to sign in front of the notary to ensure that they can put their stamp on the document. Next slide. Now, why should I do a will? Basically, it ensures that your possessions will be distributed as you wish. So a lot of times things happen, people pass on, and you have family members fighting over the stuff that are left behind. You can prevent that if you put a will in place. You can appoint and outline power of attorney, power of executor or trustee. You can appoint a guardian for your minor children. So basically, you can say, okay, when I'm not here or when I'm not able to do what I need to do, this person will stand in place for me and to speak up for me. You can use it to specify your funeral wishes. What are you looking for? Right? It helps to expedite the legal process after you pass on, and it reduces any stress and headache for your loved ones. Now, the downside of a will is that there's no protection from probate. So if you have a will, you will go through the court administrated probate process for any assets controlled by your will, right? Not all your assets are controlled under your will, and direct distributions are not flexible. No estate tax protection. So those are some of the downside of a will, but you're still encouraged to put something in place for your future. Next slide. How do you create the will? First of all, you need to make a note of your assets and think about your final wishes. So you want to ensure that it is done over a period of time. So you sit down, you think about, you have a car, you have a house, you have accounts, the digital assets, consider those as well, which is online accounts. You want to ensure that whoever you choose to speak on your behalf, that they have access to all these things. Gather documents needed for the will preparation. So if you need birth certificates, if you need a mortgage statements, things like that, ensure that you have them in place so it can be given to the executor or your lawyer. Also, choose your executor and your beneficiaries. The executor is a person who will take charge of distribution or anything that you left in your will. The beneficiaries are the persons who will benefit from what you have left behind. So you are able to make note of who you want those persons to be. Also, nominate a guardian in terms of if you have younger children, you can put in names in place instead of just leaving up everything and then you don't know what happened to your children after you leave. Nominating a guardian can assist in that way. Ensure you sign your will, ensure that you store your will. Anything can happen, you don't want that to be misplaced. So ensure that if you have a safety deposit box, you can put it there, make sure it's something that is fireproof. And you also have a legacy drawer that you can use in order to help you with storing of your will. And then you need to update and amend your will as needed. This is because life happens, things happen over time. Sometimes people get divorced, sometimes you get new assets along the way. Sometimes people have more children, sometimes you move out of state, and remember the state laws are different. So with that being said, anything can happen to your beneficiaries that you had before. Always update it over time, look back at things that you have and make the necessary changes if needs be. And over to you, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you for that. Oh, let me just make sure. Okay. So now when it comes to a trust, and for those that are, saying, I don't understand this at all, I always say that a will is simply you're saying, I will give this to you. While a trust is, I am entrusting what I have to you. Now, it seems simple for an individual to put that in place, but close to 70% of families do not have either a will or trust in place. And so a lot of times when they are passing away, they leave it up for the court to make the decision as far as who gets what, and when you will receive what is there. But the easiest thing that you could do if you don't have the funding to get a will or a trust is with every bank account you have, with all of your retirement accounts, your investment accounts, make sure that you have a beneficiary listed on it. That is the easiest thing you could do, because as soon as you pass away, it goes directly to the person that you put on that beneficiary. And you won't need, per se, the will or the trust for that. And I know that because I had to be an executor for my aunt that passed away and, disperse the things. But the things that she had as beneficiary, it went directly. Okay. But outside of that, the property, the other assets that didn't have anything, such as a car, those things, that is what you'll put either most times in the will, and then after that you can decide on the trust. And so I discussed in layman's term what the trust is. As it reads there, it's a legal arrangement where one person, the trustor, transfers the assets to another person or entity, the trustee, to manage for the benefit of the third party. And the person doesn't have to pass away for it to be in a trust managing over, to be managed by the trustees. The person could be living while it is set up. And this can help with protecting your assets, estate planning, and minimizing taxes. A lot of times why individuals usually do not set up the trust is because it usually can cost about over $1,000 to set it up, and also finding the right attorney to assist you with that. And if you need someone, we can definitely recommend you individuals for that. And so who needs a trust? It's recommended for individuals that have minor children, and also for those that have special needs children, okay, where they cannot make decisions, if the parent were to pass away. And so by designating the individual that would, manage your assets, that can ease up a lot of stress, because what is the child going to be able to do? But also for high net worth individuals, especially if they want to reduce estate taxes and protect their assets from creditors. And the general estate tax is over $13 million. So if you have anything lower than that amount, you're not going to have to really be as concerned as those that have an amount over that. And they want to make sure that everything that they have just passes smoothly to the trustees or the beneficiary. But also it is a great tool for property owners, as it allows for them to have a smooth transfer of property after death. But it is also possible if you have a will and you own a property. The only difference is that, of course, one will go through the probate process, the other will not. When it goes through the probate process, there will be fees that will be taken out. But you're not going to be, even if you set up the trust, don't think that you can evade taxes. People think, oh, I'm going to be able to pay no tax. No, it just avoids the probate process. So if there's a capital gain amount, that's going to have to be worked out still, and that's why it's important that you, when you get a property, have the discussion with the attorney up front, but also speak with the lender to make sure that it's not going to be an issue if you have a trust, if you want to transfer everything into the trust. If it's difficult to do that, just wait until you pay off the home, okay? Or also, if you don't have a trust, just make sure you have someone else on the title, okay? Which most times would be your spouse. The trust is also recommended for individuals that are also just seeking privacy. They don't want people to know. They don't want it on TMZ or YouTube when it comes to how much they had, how many homes they had. They want it to stay private and pass on to the next individual privately. Okay, so the last slide that I have here is what are the simple steps to set up a trust. The first thing you need to do is consult with a legal professional. There are estate planning attorneys all throughout the United States. Depending on your state, you want to find someone that is able to assist you in that state. And of course, there's going to be a fee for them to do the work and also to set up the trust. But also understand that every single year, most times, you will have adjustments that you would want to make. And that's especially if you have a revocable trust. You're making changes and adjustments. You're going to have to go back and discuss that with the attorney to adjust those things. But there are also trusts that are irrevocable where you cannot make any changes. Once you say it, it is done. Okay. The next thing to do is to select the trustee, the person or institution to manage the trust. And this is where God comes into the picture. You remember what happened with going back to Isaac, right? Isaac thought that everything should pass to his son Esau. But before the children were even born, God told Isaac, he said, and to his wife, he said that the older will serve the younger. So even though it's usually supposed to be the firstborn, it was actually going to be the lastborn that would have the responsibility of managing all of the assets and passing the birthright on, because God is more concerned about their relationship with him than if they know how to manage $1 million. Because if they don't have a spiritual connection with God, pride comes into the picture, greed comes into the picture, corruption comes into the picture over the course of time. This is why it's important that whoever you put down as a trustee or the beneficiary, you consult God and say, God, who do you want me to list down? It may not be all your children. It may just be 1 or 2 or 3. But have that conversation with God and let him choose the individual, because we don't know the character of individuals after we pass. And we don't know what they will do after we pass, especially if they are not God-fearing. Okay, so you decide on the beneficiaries, you draft the trust agreement, you fund the trust, which is just simply transferring all of the assets, the property, the bank accounts, everything into that trust, and you review and update as needed. And so your best friend or second or third best friend will be that attorney that sets up the trust with you. So make sure that you understand everything that you're setting up. You have the budget to set up the trust and also to maintain it over the length of time. But also after it's set up, you have conversations with your family and let them know, if something happens to me, this is what we have. Okay. So I know there may be some questions on estate planning. I'm not licensed to be able to really give legal advice. So for that, I would definitely recommend you to someone. But hopefully this information could be helpful to those tuning in. And with that, I believe that is the last slide of this evening's program.
Yes, thank you so much, Jonathan. Could you put the information, the lawyer or attorney's information? You said you're gonna you recommend attorneys, if you want.
Yes, I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So this is the question and answer segment. If anyone has questions, they can put their hand up. I'll see it, and then I'll call on you, or you can put those questions in the chat. So Jasmine Spence, do you suggest transferring a pension into a trust? I suppose that's for
I just came off of mute. For that question, I would not answer that. I would refer that to
an attorney.
Legal professional.
Okay. Okay. So, I don't see any hands up here. Okay, so I have a question. So stocks, if you're paying off a home, you said, try to put in as much money so you can pay off the home sooner. Some people would recommend that whatever extra you have to invest it. What would you recommend? What would your response be for someone who faces the decision of either paying off the home or invest in it?
Great question. I believe it's based off of what is the opportunity cost of both. So when you look at the current market, the stock market right now, you look at the direction it's heading. A lot of individuals are benefiting by simply having their money in basic savings accounts that are giving 4 or 5% interest, right? And then when it comes to investing in the stocks, they're getting 8, 9, 10% interest in the year. So if they had $10,000, 8%, what is that? What is 8% of 10,000? Right? That's about $800 every single year that they are making. And of course, it compounds, right? Every single year, that is what they are accruing. Now, if you take it and compare it with a mortgage where the interest rates are around 6%, right? Look at how much they are making on interest. If you have, let's say, if you have just a mortgage of, let's say, 500,000, right? And they are making 500,000, they are making 6% of that a year. That's $30,000. All right. So what is an opportunity cost? What is going to be the cost if I take this opportunity versus that opportunity? So if you have a mortgage, they're making 6% off of that amount that you owe left, that 500,000, that's $30,000 they're making every single year off of you, which you're paying over the long haul. And if you had $10,000 and you had that inside of a savings account or investment account growing at 8%, you're only making $800 in the year. So what do you think is better? Right? Obviously, it would be to pay off the mortgage. Now, let's say you had $1 million in your investment account now, okay? And you are gaining 8% in the year. What is 8% of $1 million? That's $80,000. So you're making more on the investment versus the $30,000 you would pay on the mortgage. So it would make more sense to invest. Does that make sense? Okay. So you just compare what is going to be the cost based off of the interest and then make the decision there. So right now, it depends on how much you have saved up, right? If you don't have more saved up than your mortgage balance left over, you want to pay off that mortgage as soon as possible. Okay. You're not going to put your entire paycheck, however, into your mortgage. Make sure you have your emergency fund. Make sure you're paying off your credit card bills and at least still contribute a portion to retirement, which should already be taken out if you have a job, you know? So that's how I'd answer that question. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. We do have a question. Do you need a lawyer to help you set up a trust? And y'all did recommend that we get a lawyer, right? So it's very important that we do so. Okay, so my question is, are there any other questions out there? Okay, I'm still waiting. When is a will binding? I know we need signatures, right? We need how many signatures? We need the notary. We need the
Two witnesses.
two witnesses.
You need to sign your two witnesses, and then the notary needs to sign off on it, or the lawyer needs to sign off on it.
And that's it. It's done.
That's for the basic one. But then again, each state have different rules and regulations.
Each state has different. Okay. Another question. Okay, but you have to make copies of those wills, and who are the people we should give those copies to? Because after we pass away, other than the executor, right? The
executor needs to have a copy of it. And if you have like a family lawyer, they can have a copy of it as well. And your spouse can have a copy of it. So it only needs to be in the hands of those who you trust.
Okay.
And Jonathan explained finding the right person to take control of everything. So those are the persons who you would give a copy of the will to. And you don't need 10 copies of the will. You have a lawyer, a family lawyer, they can have one, you have one, and then you can give a copy to your executor if you want to do so.
Okay. You spoke about probate. Could you explain what probate means?
So probate is when you have to go to the courts.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a probate court, filing and everything. You will go there and you have to put all the things that is outlined in the will, all the assets that needs to be distributed, whether it's in accounts, real estates, and so forth. And then the will be read out basically, and then they will make a decision. Okay, they will also check if you have any outstanding debts. So before any payments can be made from your assets, they have to pay off all the creditors who you owe. So if you owe for a car, if you owe for a house, all of that, payments will be made to those. So basically, they will check into your financial background, check to see what debts you have, and then, give the go ahead to make the
Well,
distribution. It can take time depending on how the will was set up.
okay, nice. You did put in the Jonathan, you did put in the attorney. They asked for the attorneys. They wanted to know
Yes.
if those attorneys, if they work in New York City.
So I actually responded to that as well. Yes, they work in New York State, so you should have no issue. And I've recommended them to my other clients in the past. So they are both great attorneys. You pray and decide which one you want to choose. And the first person you speak to, just ask them what is the fees that they charge and how many clients are they working with right now, so that you can at least make sure you're getting a fee structure that is comfortable to you, and also that they are going to be as attentive to you. So these are just two recommendations, but there are many others that I may not have right now to give to you, but you can find them online. Okay. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Shane Nicholas, he had something to say. Is he?
Yes, I had a question concerning the trust. So, do you think it's important to have both of them, or does one override the other? Does the trust override the will, or vice versa, if you have both documents in place?
So when it comes to the will, you don't have individuals, you are not giving individuals a responsibility except for the executor to manage your assets, which some people may not want to have to, deal with the responsibility of being a trustee and observing your assets and things like that. So, I would say that for the individuals that uh, you have within your circle, a will is more cost effective, and also is a lot easier to set up. I would say it could be either or, it could be both, right? But the trust, that will take more work to set up. And also, you'll need to assign individuals, unlike with the will, where it's just the executor, unless you, of course, you have your power of attorney and things like that. But you'll need to assign individuals that will be trustees on the account, and that may take time in itself. But as far as the property, when it comes to it, first thing is, if you have like I told another individual, if you currently owe something on that home, you need to speak to the bank and find out if it's okay if you could transfer it over. Same thing like if you're going to put your property in an LLC. A lot of people say, "I want to put my property in an LLC," right? You need to first get the permission of the bank that you can do that, because until you pay off the mortgage, the property actually is still under the ownership of the lender. Okay. On the title, it's still actually in their name. It's not completely yours until you pay it off, just like if you have a car. Okay. So make sure you have that conversation with them and also the attorney, and they can tell you what is best for your situation. Okay.
Also, to add, the will comes into effect after your death. The trust, you can use it while you're still living. So you can keep that in mind as well.
Okay, that's new to me. Okay, so David had the same questions, the same question Shane asked, that was answered. So tax preparers, one individual asked, if could you recommend any tax preparers because the husband and wife, they both have properties in other states, and they live, however, in New York City. So would
Yes,
you recommend any?
yes, I can recommend one of CPA's, also at Venice. That's amazing. Let me
Okay,
just put his contact there as well. Okay.
okay.
I have a
Do you,
question.
sure.
Okay, so earlier I thought I heard Jonathan. He mentioned that that they do not conflict, like the will and the trust. They don't conflict because they are two different things. So I just want to be sure if my understanding of it was correct, because I thought he said in the will you are directly giving stuff to people. You're giving stuff to people, but you are choosing your successor in terms of who you want to manage, who are you entrusting. That's what the trust is, right?
Correct. So what was the question? I didn't understand. What was the question?
Yeah. It was only because earlier, I heard that Shane asked that question, so it kind of had me questioning a little bit my understanding of it. So I just wanted, clarification
Yeah.
that
So I
they
would
are completely two different things, and they do not clash at all. They are distinctly different. Yeah.
Great question. Yeah, so I was giving a layman's term definition of the will and the trust. The will, as it says, is I will give this to this individual, but as Nikisha mentioned, when I pass away, whatever you put in the will, it is for when you pass away. So I will give,
Right.
generally how the will would be set up is I will give 75% of this and that to this individual, my son, and 25% will go to this person, my, daughter, or unless you're married, 75, right? That's what it generally will look like. With the trust, it's simply saying, I am entrusting this person to manage what I have while I am alive and when I am dead. Okay. So the will comes into effect when the person passes away. The trust comes into effect when it's set up while a person is living or when the person is dead. To set up both, you can do both, but deciding which one, that is where you would have to speak to an attorney to do that, as I really can't give you legal advice. Okay.
Next question. Is it best to put your home in a trust to live to your kids when you pass?
I think I answered that.
Oh, you did.
I was
Okay.
going through it, but again, that is something you need to speak with the attorney to find out if it is recommended, but also again, speak with the lender, and find if it's not going to be an issue to do that. Okay.
Okay, so right. So the trustee can be a person or a business. When you say entity, could you um, specify some of those
Yeah, the
entities?
entity is just a company.
A
Okay.
company. So it can be
Generally,
a person
the
also.
company is just a group of individuals.
Okay, and does the trust protect your personal assets?
Yes, it protects your personal assets, but to use the to use the term protect your assets or personal assets, that's a broad definition because if a
Okay.
person is thinking that they can evade taxes,
Hmm.
that's right. It's not, it doesn't work like that, right? IRS, they have worked every single account out. They know exactly how to do it. You cannot run away from taxes, and you should not, right? But of course, you want to make sure you're paying the sufficient amount. There's nothing wrong with taxes because that is how, even in the Bible, it talks about Jesus said, give to Caesar to what is his, give to God what is his. We are obliged to give back because it benefits, hopefully, the society, right? So it's not, I'm setting this up because I don't want to pay any taxes. You set it up because you don't want to have that many issues when you pass away. Okay?
Okay, and also to protect from lawsuits, kind of trust.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so
But
okay.
then again, with you're not able to evade every single thing that comes out. If you pass away, the creditors can still contact you, mail you, and say, "Hey, can you pay this? There was a balance owed on this," and they can still attempt to try to sue you. Okay. And I won't get too much into detail on that. But of
Okay.
course, as far as paying it out and paying them back, that's your own decision in doing that. But they have that opportunity. Of course, every state there's a time period that they're given. Some are just a year, some are more. But also in certain states, we have what is called inheritance tax. And that is when a person passes away, there's a percentage that has to be given back as an inheritance tax. And one example is a state like Pennsylvania, which is right next to us. New York doesn't have an inheritance tax, but you can't evade that as well, right? So these things, getting into the fine print, I'm not going to get too more in depth,
Okay.
but you speak with a legal professional, they can give you the full rundown, okay?
Okay. Okay, nice. Any more questions? Okay. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Any hands?
So what I will do for all that are tuning in right now is give you the offer of having more education that you could ever need to be able to prepare yourself for any financial plans that you have this year. And so we have an ebook that is approved by the General Conference that will give you the education on everything that we discuss, plus more. And you can receive that for free if you press that link there. But also, if you would like a guide on how to be able to acquire real estate, you also have the opportunity to check off if you would like that book. And even if you may not use it, you can pass it on to an individual that you know that needs it themselves. But if you would like to contact myself or Nikisha for any other questions, feel free to text us and we could potentially set up a time to speak with you one-on-one on the phone. Okay?
Nice. There is one more question. If you have set up a trust and you no longer wish to have that person, what is the procedure to get it out of their hands? I
To
guess
be
it's
honest, I don't know the procedure, so I would
okay. Okay. So
I gave two
consent.
contacts, so feel free to reach out to either or of them and they will take care of you. Okay?
Okay, okay. Can you also, I know you put up a slide where you once we took a picture of the code, we would get a list of companies that offer grants to individuals who can't afford down payments. Could you put up that slide again?
What I will do is I'll put the direct link
The
once.
direct link. Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Jonathan. This is Charlene.
Hey, Charlene.
How are you? Very good.
Good, good.
Well, very much informative. I've learned a lot. Thank you for this.
Amazing.
Now, my kids are young, and if anything happens and I passed away, God forbid, this early, and I have a will set up and everything, the kids, at what age, is it 18 or 21 before they will get my debt benefits and all of those? Is it 21 or 18? I don't know if you know that information. For
So,
it. Mhm.
well, if you're using the term death benefit, I assume you're talking about life insurance.
Yes, and all that. That will be.
Nikisha, you want to answer that? License, bro.
So you can set it up for 18 and you can set it up for 21. It depends on how you want to set it up for the
Oh,
benefits to be distributed to the children. You have some people who says they want to wait until they're finished with college because you know your children, or they set it up at 18 because that's the legal age,
Gotcha.
basically,
Okay.
that they can get this.
Perfect. Thank you. I wasn't sure if it was 18 or 21.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And I put in the chat the direct link to access the down payment assistance programs. Okay.
We have questions coming in. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, we got it. Okay, we are at the end of our program. Do you have any more questions? I will pass it over to Shane. Thank you so much, Nikki and Jonathan. I'm going to pass this over to Shane, with my husband.
Hi, good evening again, everybody. Nikki and Jonathan, I want to thank you guys immensely for the amount of information that you guys provided for us today. We really appreciate it, and I hope that everybody is going to take advantage of this opportunity to learn and to better our finances. At this point, we are going to we're supposed who's Urania? I don't have
Yes, so
the agenda.
Seth Nicholas is supposed to give us
Do the
the
closing prayer.
yes.
But guys, that I just want to say that was a lot of information. When the program began, I saw it was being recorded. Would that be something that we can play at a later date at the church in case somebody wasn't able to make it this evening? Because there was so much information that was provided today. And a lot of things that I thought I knew about, I got a different twist on it. So I appreciate that. And Jonathan and Nikisha, I'm telling you guys are going to be getting a call from me at some point because there are some things that I didn't quite get, and I think I understood it differently in the past. And you guys gave me a different spin on it. So I might be pulling on you guys your earlobes in the future. But from our church to you guys, I just want to say an immense thank you. We are so grateful for all that information that you give, and we are looking forward to trouble you guys again to do something like that for us in the future because as time goes by, we know things change. And so we want to get at least the latest update or as to where we stand and the actions that we can take to better secure a future for our family and for generations to come. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
You're welcome.
You're so welcome.
I think, Seth, you can pray it out.
I can pray now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Seth. My mic was mute.
No, you good. You good. Another thank you to Sister Nikisha and Brother Jonathan. Thank you so much. All right, can we all bow our heads, close our eyes? Dear Lord, I would like to first start off. Thank you for all letting us get here onto this Zoom platform safely, although it was just a tap of our phones. I want to also thank you for both of our presenters for blessing them with the knowledge to share with all of us. I ask that you be with all of us who are on this platform at this moment. Help us to all become financially stable and achieve the goals that we desire in our lives using the knowledge that was given to us today. I ask that you be with us, bless us. Thank you for everything that you have done for us, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone. I hope you
Amen.
took all the information from the chat.